Welcome to the Win-Win Evangelism podcast. I'm Tina Waldrom from Evangelism in Australia. I love helping you and your church feel confident and inspired to share Jesus consistently. Before today's topic, how do Christians stay confident in a world of AI, Islam and woke with Rob Martin, I want to let you know about our free download that will help you answer the hard questions that people have about faith. And you can download that for free on our website, evangelisminaustralia.com. Well, today I'm chatting with Rob Martin. Rob's the pastor of the English-speaking congregation at Northcote Baptist Church in Melbourne's Inner North and serves as the chair of the Ideas Convention at Belgrave Heights Convention in Victoria. With degrees in commerce and theology, Rob is passionate about helping Christians thoughtfully engage the big cultural and spiritual questions shaping society today. The Ideas Convention is one of those must-attend events as a Christian. It's coming up again shortly in Victoria, and today I want to give you a sneak peek of that convention. Welcome to you, Rob.
It's great to be here, Tina. It's great to see you too.
Great to have you on the show. In fact, you've been on the show a few times. When you look at Christianity in Australia right now, Rob, why did the word confidence become the central theme for the Ideas Convention this year?
That's a great question, Tina. And it came about as we were reflecting a couple of years ago, what are we on about in the Ideas Convention? Because we kind of cover a lot of different things, and I've been here before, and you've spoken with, or you've actually came along last year yourself as well. But we try to do a lot of different things. It's apologetics, it's evangelism, it's cultural engagement, it's Bible teaching. There's a whole bunch of stuff that we're trying to do. But we're trying to think through as a committee or as an organizing group, what is the core of what we're trying to achieve? What is it ultimately it's about? Is it about trying to give people answers to hard questions? Maybe. Is it people just, to have a nice weekend away in a beautiful location? Maybe. But ultimately, we think actually what we really want to do is equip Christians in the Bible to help them engage our culture with confidence. So I think confidence really is the heart of what we're trying to achieve with the Ideas Convention. Confidence to know that the Christian message is true, that it's beautiful, that it's good, that there's answers to the hard questions, but it's also, I can just go and talk to my friend or my neighbor or my colleague about the Christian message. Give them confidence to do that, knowing those things underneath it. So really, as I said, it's really the heart of what we're trying to do. Just give people confidence to know that it's actually the Christian message and Jesus is actually really good news.
Yeah, I love that. And I was at the convention last year and absolutely loved it. In fact, this year I've joined your team, in fact, helping, talk about how we're going to put this on, et cetera, and it's outstanding. I'm very excited about it. One of the things I noticed in the program is this idea of helping ordinary Christians engage culture rather than retreating from it. Why is that so important right now?
To engage with our culture, to give people Christians culture? Well, because I think our culture, we're maybe not at a crossroads. Everyone says we're always at a cultural crossroads. There's always a cultural crossroads. But I do feel like there is a sense in which we have got some big cultural moments in our world at the moment. 15 years ago or so, the new atheism was kind of dominant. Certainly in Christian was very influential. A lot of people were convinced by people like Richard Dawkins and Sam Harris and Christopher Hitchens. They wrote very strong tirades against God. But then, since then, there's been that people, I think, tried that for a while and found that it didn't really work. So in the last few years, I think there's been a spiritual, Justin Briley, who we had to contribute to the convention last year, talks about a surprising rebirth of belief in God. So there's actually a number of people, modern thinkers, who are seeing that actually maybe the Christian faith does have something to offer the modern secular world. So I think that's an interesting kind of cultural movement. But also along those lines, that's not to say that the still culture is not still hostile to the Christian message. It's just because there is some movement towards sort of actually, I think that there's something to this Christian message, and we can't dismiss it as being dangerous and irrelevant and untrue, as the new atheists did. But that's not to say that everyone's moving in that space as well. And there is still, I think, a lot of hostility at times and apathy as well. And I suppose it just means that there's a lot to navigate as a Christian to try to think about, well, which are the contours, which are the different spaces that we're going to navigate. And so hence, so culture is complex. And I think what we're trying to do at the Ideas Convention is to just make that complexity a little less complex, if that makes sense, and to try to work out where are the opportunities, where are the spaces where we can talk to our friends, our colleagues, that colleague in the workplace, or our family member that doesn't really talk about the Christian message. Give us confidence to and some tools to be able to actually engage those conversations, taking advantage perhaps of the rebirth in God, belief in God, but also acknowledging that that's not the case with everyone. But still, wherever you are in those changing landscape also, there's opportunity to know that the Christian message is good news for everyone. And so to find those spaces and opportunities to share that, I think, is exciting. And that's really what we're trying to, one of the goals, I suppose, of the Ideas Convention is to help people engage those spaces a bit better.
Yeah, and I love it. Last year when I came along, I loved that it was taking those complex ideas or complex things that are going on in culture and actually simplifying it for me and giving me those practical tools of how that I could engage. Let's talk about Richard Schumack. So he's coming along. He's one of the keynote speakers.
Yep.
And he'll be speaking about Islam and suffering. Why do you think personally, why are those conversations becoming increasingly important in Australia right now?
Last year, we almost tried to cover too many ideas, and we sort of thought, what ideas are we going to cover? And so we thought, we want to help people to know that the Christian message is true, and it's right, and it's real. So and we thought, well, what is the big objection to that? And it's really the problem of suffering and evil is often the biggest challenge and intellectual issue that people face, not only as believers trying to understand and wrestle with the nature of God, but for an unbelieving world to sort of say, actually, how can I believe in God when there's a world full of suffering? I mean, so David Attenborough, who earlier this year celebrated his 100th birthday, his biggest objection to the Christian faith is the problem of suffering. He says that he talks about a worm that exists only it burrows into some child's eye or something in West Africa. And he says, how could that, he doesn't find that consistent with a belief in God. And that can rattle our faith. That can help us to lose confidence in sharing or believing that message. So that's why the problem of suffering and evil is really a big one that I think we need to continually reflect on and think through, because I think there actually are good answers in the Bible and answers philosophically as well, but certainly in the scriptures to show that actually the problem of suffering and evil is not incompatible with a good and loving God. So Richard is one of those people, because that's why we wanted to deal with the problem of suffering. And I suppose we approached Richard because we know that he's certainly got he's a bit of an all-rounder in many ways. He's got lots of strengths, lots of gifts, but he has a passion particularly engaging Islam. So when we were thinking of speakers to engage these topics, we just thought, well, Islam is also another presenting challenge. A lot of people, I think, don't really know much about Islam. I think there's a lot of stuff you see on the news, and what the average Muslim believes is possibly quite different to what is presented on YouTube videos and so on. So I suppose Richard is a great person who can combine those two worlds for us, the challenge of suffering and evil, but also helping us to understand Islam a little better as well, and the big ideas that are connected with that. And so that's really why we're really privileged to have Richard come and to share a bit about those things. But yeah, as I said, to really dig in with probably the biggest objections that people might face to the Christian faith, and to help us just to grow some muscles in that space to give us confidence to engage those who may oppose us, but also for us ourselves, give us confidence that actually there might be times when we doubt, when we have a family member pass away, or we see some suffering and evil on the news, or we just struggle with that question. It just gives us confidence to know that actually there's still good news.
Yeah, it's going to be outstanding. I can't wait to listen to him myself. In fact, he's got a great book out there as well about engaging Islam, which is outstanding. Now, AI is going to feature prominently also in the convention. Why do you think Christians need to seriously engage with AI rather than just fear it? Because many are fearing it. So what's your thinking on that?
Yeah. Well, as I said, when we sat back and tried to work out what are the big ideas that we need to cover, and we thought rather than try to do every big idea, because if you do every big idea, you're not doing any because there's too many. So we thought, what are some of the? Why is the Christian message? Why is it true? Is it true? So that's why we're touching on suffering, trying to deal with that truth question. Then we thought, what's the big cultural moment? What's the big issue in our culture that our world is wrestling with in terms of if we're thinking about how do I navigate a complex world, the biggest issue probably is, I think, is clearly AI. I mean, it's a fascinating field, so much opportunity, but there is actually lots to fear as well because it does challenge so much about humanity, who we are as humans. What does it mean to be human? Does it mean can I be replicated? Can I be replicated by a bot or something? Or can I? Is it going to help? Will I lose my job? It's probably a relevant question for many people. I'm not sure if you've ever thought about that, Tina, for you, that maybe you could just get an AI bot just to ask all the questions and then you don't have to worry about, they can edit the whole thing and produce a podcast and you don't have to do anything. But so will it render humans unnecessary in many ways? So we thought this is a big issue. It's been sort of spilling around for a while, but I feel like now we've come to the time where actually it's becoming more and more prevalent in everyday life. There's lots of big things to think through. Christians can fear, I think, but I think you fear what you don't know in many cases. And you sort of learn all about this thing, and I don't really understand it. But I think once we learn something better and understand it better, we don't need to fear it. We can understand and be better placed to critique it and perhaps use it positively or to know how to navigate that space. So hence, one of the things we're trying to do as well is to give a bit of a opportunity just to give an overview about, so it's just people going to, what the heck is AI? Like, what does AI stand for? Like, I'm not really, so we're not really sure what AI, the words mean, artificial intelligence, what does that mean? But then there's also going to be an opportunity to go a bit deeper as well. That's where Stephen Driscoll is going to come in and to give us an opportunity to dive a bit deeper, to get into some of the apologetic, theological, anthropological, what does it mean to be human kind of questions. There's an opportunity to dig a bit deeper there. So that's what we're trying to do, sort of two levels with the convention this year, is to try to top level stuff, give me some overview, help me understand at a basic level. But for those who want to go a bit deeper, there'll be opportunity to explore that as well.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. And, you know, there's so many exciting things that are going to be addressed in the Ideas Convention this year, which is super exciting. Starting on a Friday night, going through most of Saturday to just before dinner, which will be wonderful. I'm even going to be speaking on a culture of wokeness and how do you engage, how do you share Jesus in this particular culture. I'm not going to share about that here on the podcast, but what do you feel are some of the pressures that Christians are feeling when it comes to publicly sharing their faith today?
Well, that's why I want to listen to your session, Tina. I think there's fear. Fear is probably the biggest impediment to anyone's evangelism or outreach. And I think if you sat down and someone who's listening to this or contemplating, why don't I share my faith with someone or something? And usually I think the number one reason is fear. And there's lots of different fears we have. Like there's a fear of looking like an idiot. There's a fear of losing friendships, or people might lose respect, or I might fear. There's lots of different fears of my colleague or my friend not ever talking to me again. Fear of being thought of as a bit of an idiot. But there is a genuine fear, I think, certainly in the woke culture. Maybe this is something you're going to address, Tina. But there is a genuine fear of losing your job, particularly if you don't do certain culturally accepted or advocated for days, for example. Like there's some certain days that are in the calendar. A Christian might feel real personal, difficult to reconcile that with our personal faith. And so what do you do on things like Wear It Purple Day? I think there is genuine fear. There's a fear, I think, of making the gospel seem like it's a bunch of rules against things that people like. So the gospel, I think, Christian message is actually the greatest message of freedom and of good news the world has ever seen. But I think when you stand up, because people see what Christians are against, and they think, oh, you're against love, you're against equality, you're against, freedom. But that can be a difficult thing to navigate. And I think that's why your session's going to answer all those questions for us, Tina. But but I think there is a genuinely difficult situation there, because you don't want the gospel to sound like, well, this is what we're against, and we're against certain people. Actually, we want to be for certain people. And I think this is where we need some help to help us to gain confidence, to know how do we communicate and show that the Christian message is good news, when, because we stand against certain woke expectations in our culture, that how can I? Yeah, it might make it seem like the Christian message is not good news at all. But I think deep down, I think the issue facing people is fear, and I think that's why we need confidence. We need to overcome those fears, confront our fears, maybe name the fear. I think at times, just to say, what is it that's preventing me from sharing my faith in this context? And then counting the cost, so to speak, but then also trying to find ways of overcoming that so that I can build my confidence in sharing. So, and again, that's, I think, what we're trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm looking forward actually to talking on that and helping us, ascertain what are those specific fears. Overall, as you look at the Ideas Convention coming up, what do you hope happens in the hearts of people who attend? What's the real outcome that you and the team are praying for?
I love the song Day by Day from Godspell. It's to follow thee more nearly, love thee more dearly, day by day. I think it's just making a little bit of a difference, that just day by day that we're a little bit more in love with Jesus, a little bit more closer to him, a little bit more able to understand some of the complex questions, so that we can have more confidence to share Jesus. So I think that's the real goal that I have for some people it has been a life-changing experience. We have had people who said this weekend really changed my life. That's wonderful, and we would love to pray for that's for the case. But for a lot of people, I feel like if we can make a little bit of a difference, so people walk away feeling a little bit more, I can be confident that my faith is true, that I've got some tools and some ways of engaging my friends, then I feel like we've achieved what we've aimed to achieve. And we're also trying to think of ways of continuing the conversation afterwards as well, providing resources and communities and stuff to help that. But still, I still feel like just even there's a couple of little nuggets or gold that comes that weekend that just gives people a little bit more confidence. I think we've done our job.
Yeah, absolutely. Amen to that. Yeah, it's going to be a great use of my time, and I want to encourage you, if you do, you may not even live in Victoria, but if you want to fly in for that convention, it's going to be outstanding. The Ideas Convention, which will be in August of 2026. You can actually jump on the website, which is BHC, which is Belgrave Heights Convention, so bhc.org.au/ideas, or just go to bhc.org.au and you'll find your way to the Ideas Convention. Well, this has been a wonderful time to chat, Rob, and it is exciting about what you're putting together here and the resources this will be for people, that people can walk away feeling confident, and they do, because I was there last year, feeling that little more confident in what they're doing. So, Rob, thank you so much for your time today. It's been very, very informative.
It's great to see you, Tina, and I'm glad that you're part of the team, and it's going to be awesome.